Hello, and a joyous welcome to This Woman's Work, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing women, the fantastic jobs they do, and the paths that have led them to where they are today. I'm here today with Jenny. Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Could you tell the lovely listener what it is you do for a living?
I will. I'm a children's speech and language therapist.
Fantastic. And, well, how long have you been doing that for first?
So I qualified in 2006, so 18
No,
years.
don't, because I keep doing this with people going, oh, quite recently then, and then you go, oh, actually, it's not that recently.
It's not recent. No, 18 years.
Wow, okay, that's, yeah. Okay, before we go into that though, as always, we track back, and we're going to talk a little bit about little Jenny.
Yeah.
And what you were like at school when you were younger, what were you into?
Okay. I would say I was quite quiet at primary school. I went to a very small village primary school, small group of friends, but we got on really well. I would say that I was very sociable, so quiet but sociable.
Okay.
And
because you felt comfortable in your group.
Absolutely, yeah. I felt safe, and it was a lovely school. I wasn't particularly academic, but I worked really hard.
Okay.
So if I was having difficulty with something, I'd work really hard at something until I understood it. So I think I had that kind of determined personality to be able to achieve. And then secondary school, I think I thrived actually. I loved the arts. I loved the technology side of things.
Okay.
The different subjects. And I think I broadened
quite practical subjects, do you think?
Practical subjects. I broadened my social circle. So I had lots of
Well, this is big school now, isn't it?
Big school, yeah. No one, we went in a class of 6.
Oh my gosh, suddenly you've gone into like hundreds of children.
Yeah, absolutely.
From your 6.
When I started primary school, there was 15 children in the school, in the whole school.
No way. Gosh, I wonder if that, there'd be no primary school now that's that small. The influx of, it's mad, isn't it? But
so I left school and I think there was 60, so then went to a bigger, I say bigger, I think it was only about 600 in my secondary school, but it was a lot bigger than the primary school.
Yeah.
And widened my social circle, and I think that's when I really thrived actually.
Okay.
I'm a very sociable person, so I had lots of fun at school, but worked really hard as well. I am a worker.
Yeah.
I like the different subjects, and I think at that point I thought, do you know what? I really want to do a job where I work with people. That's me.
So you knew even then?
I think all the way along through my schooling, I knew that I wanted to do something in the medical world.
And is that because of your parents or?
No, my dad's a solicitor.
Okay.
And my mum is a registrar and a mum. So, no, I just had this kind of innate feeling that I needed to help people and work with people. So, and then I thought, do you know what? I don't know if I'm clever enough to be a doctor. So I looked into other things, and speech and language therapy came up.
At what age were you doing this?
That came up at kind of just past GCSE into A-levels. So I was making my decisions about A-levels.
Yes.
And I think I was the first year who did their AS levels. I think AS levels were new for my year at school. So there were different AS levels available. And I chose subjects around what I needed to get into university.
Wow, okay. Gosh, I think you're the first person that I've chatted to that's done that.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I guess I've chatted to things like, because Mary Clough chatted to who's a surgeon. Yeah. And obviously that's quite a linear path. And I've chatted to like a vet and a physio. So that, like you say, that medical is quite a linear path, isn't it? But everyone else has been very much, I've just done really random things and figured it out later on. So like you say, I think those kind of roles are callings, aren't they?
I think they are. And I think, when you do a degree like speech and language therapy, you are a speech and language therapist. You're a qualified therapist when you come out. You're thrown into the working world. So you need to be quite clear in the path that you want to take, I think, because actually you wouldn't do a degree like speech and language therapy if you weren't going to become a speech and language therapist.
Yes, quite. Yeah.
And then so I did my A-levels, English, psychology, biology, chemistry.
Wow.
Tricky. Oh, chemistry for me was really tricky.
Yeah.
Really. And then I had to apply to university, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because at that stage, there weren't many universities that offered speech and language.
I was going to say, yeah. So your options were very limited, which in some respects almost is quite nice, because then it narrows your choice down.
Yeah.
So where did you go then?
So, well, I applied to, I think, all of the universities in the country, but De Montfort and Leicester was one of them.
Yeah.
And I think I had to kind of really decide what I wanted, out of the course.
Yeah.
Because it's a different course to many courses in the fact that you are training to become a therapist. It's very intense. There's lots of placements.
Yeah.
You have to attend all of your lectures and seminars. It's 5 days a week. It was very intense.
Oh, so it's hardcore then?
Very hardcore.
Okay.
And then you're off on placement and out.
What, from day one?
From the first year, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it really is a practical course then?
It's a very practical course, yes.
So what you learn, put it into practice, learn, put it into practice,
Absolutely,
learn.
yeah. So the first year, you learn about typical normal development in both children and adults. And then when you went on placements, I think I worked in a nursery, children's nursery, I worked in a care home. Just gaining those skills at interacting with children and adults. And then
observing them, I guess.
Yeah. And then year 2 is about, what might go wrong, what happens, if a child doesn't develop their language or their speech. And then you start having more clinical placements.
Right.
In the community, so in hospitals, in health centres.
Yeah.
So you're out and about from, quite early in the course.
Wow, okay. And then what, so how long is a degree in speech and language therapy?
I think mine was 3.5 years.
Okay.
Some are 3, some are 4. And I think actually researching it, because I haven't looked into it for so long, I think
has it changed in the last
I think it has, yeah.
Well, obviously, I'm guessing most courses have.
Yeah, I think there's more courses now, so I think more universities offer the course, and there are different paths. So you can do postgraduate training. So if you have an undergraduate degree in something associated with speech language therapy, so English or languages or psychology, I think you can then do postgrad training. And
like a top-up type thing?
Yeah, like a top-up, yeah.
Wow, okay. Oh, well, we'll have to research all of that. I don't know if you know, but for every career I chat through, we do a big job write-up.
Oh, great.
So if someone's listening to it and thinks, oh God, I'd love to do that, it gives them tips on how to get started, courses you can take, places you can go to, rules and regs, what pay might look like. So it's a big sort of download, actually.
Fabulous.
So that'll be interesting to see what it now says about that.
Yeah, and I think they do now apprenticeships as well. And I think I perhaps would have taken that route if that was available to me.
Really? So what I know you probably to put you on the spot, but what does that look like then as an apprenticeship? So what do you need as a base?
I think you would apply to a university, and this is just from the brief research that I've done.
Yeah.
Apply to a university for the speech and language therapy degree, but you do an apprenticeship, so you work alongside a speech and language therapist or in a speech and language therapy company.
Okay, so it's still alongside the degree.
It's alongside the degree, but you get more, you're working as well. So it's perhaps a longer route, but it's
more practical.
The one good thing about speech language therapy is that when I trained, I got a bursary from the NHS to help, and they paid for our tuition fees. So
yeah, God, let's hope that's still the case. We'll find out when I'm doing my research. Because I'm guessing you are in small supply, are you? I mean, how many of you are there?
Yeah, there's not many.
Well, exactly.
I think when I did some research, I think there's about 2 million children in the country at the moment who have speech, language and communication needs.
That have been identified.
Exactly.
Let alone those that haven't.
Yeah. and there are not many of us. So, I think, unfortunately, waits, particularly on the NHS, are quite long at the moment. And it was stressful when I worked in the NHS. It was, you were constantly managing expectations of parents, the demands of the caseload, and there wasn't enough of us to go around and to do what we wanted to do. When I left my degree course, I was a speech and language therapist. Jobs were like gold dust.
Yeah.
There was 2006.
How weird, even though they're so needed. But the NHS hadn't prioritised it. Was that?
I think at that point there were lots of therapists in the NHS. It's different now. I think therapists are working privately as well as in the NHS. It's all to do with funding, isn't it? And I think there just wasn't any posts coming available. So I waited for a few months, and then a job came up in Northamptonshire.
Oh gosh, that's handy.
That was really handy.
So you may have had to have just gone wherever the jobs were, anywhere in the country.
Yeah.
Or not work in that profession for a while.
Yeah, there was nothing. It was very stagnant. It was, there wasn't anything coming up. So when this job came up, there was about 50 or 60 applicants for it. And obviously all of my friends from university went for the same job. It was a bit tricky. But I got it. So I was really lucky to have got
and
the job.
Also very talented.
Thank you.
We as women, we play ourselves down, don't we?
We do. And so I started working in Northamptonshire in a general post, but it was just with children. Right. I worked in some special schools. I worked in community clinics, in hospitals, so just with children. And I loved it. I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to work with children. And I developed lots of skills. Great bunch of ladies I worked with over in Northamptonshire. We had one man.
Okay, that again was going to be one of my questions. So even on your course, what was the split, male, female?
So we were all female, 40.
There was no guys?
No guys on my course, no. There are.
And did you see any coming up below you? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But many or?
No, I would say, very few male
interesting.
speech and language therapists in comparison to females. Few more
even
now
that
few more now, but it's very female dominated career. When I first started, I was in the generalist post, and then 2008, so I've been there a couple of years. I specialised, and a job came up within the trust to run a language unit attached to a mainstream nursery school. That meant that I had the responsibility of planning and
running it.
Running the unit.
Wow. Okay. So ran that unit for what? A few years?
So I ran that unit until I left to have my son. So I ran that unit alongside another NHS job. Where I was working. I held a caseload of preschool children. And so I saw all of the preschool children who were referred in. I was working in Wellingborough at that point. Worked with a great practitioner who helped me every day, and so that was great. So I loved my job to the point where when I fell pregnant with my son, I had a very bad pregnancy, and I was very poorly through my pregnancy. But I didn't want to let my caseload down. And so I went into work on days that perhaps I shouldn't have gone in, because you don't want to let your children down. They've been waiting for months for appointments.
Oh, gosh. You don't ever think about that, do you?
You don't. And I'd be kind of going in feeling really poorly. And then on one particular day, I was really poorly. And I felt very, very, very ill, but was running a clinic. I was on the floor with the children. I think I was about 33 weeks pregnant at that point. went back
so heavily pregnant,
went back to the hospital at lunchtime to write up my notes, and I looked at my phone and I'd had about 20 missed calls from my GP and my husband, and I thought, what on earth is going on? And I rang them and they said, oh, you must go, we've got some test results back, you must go to the hospital now. And I said, well, I can't, I'm in the middle of a clinic, I can't leave. And so my GP rang me and said, no, you need to leave now and don't go home, go straight. And they said, oh, don't drive a car. I was in Northamptonshire and I had to get to Leicester, and I said, well, I need to drive my car, I can't not drive my car, I need my car.
Oh my gosh, what a state of panic to put you in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went from work, so I ran the clinic in the morning, and by the afternoon I was seriously ill. By the evening I couldn't even stand up, and I had my son was born via emergency C-section under a general anaesthetic that night. So you were
basically in work in the morning trying to just fuddle through?
Yeah. I think that was my dedication. I didn't like to take any time off, and it was
because I was just about to say, were they scaring you unnecessarily? But no.
I had something called HELLP syndrome, which is a severe pregnancy complication, very rare, but
thank God,
fatal. Yes, can be fatal for mum and baby. So I was really lucky that was discovered through blood tests. So I'd left my work, hadn't finished up anything, hadn't passed anything over to anybody, hadn't written up my case notes from the morning. All I could think about when I was in hospital was my job and how I hadn't finished everything up.
Gosh.
So I always remember when James was in special care, he was in special care for a few weeks. And when I got discharged, I was discharged after about 10 days of being in hospital. I was really poorly. I had to go home and I wrote up all my case notes. I had to just get everything sorted and finished and handed over before I could start being a mum, because it was just something.
You needed to do that for you.
Yeah. So I've always been quite dedicated to...
Oh gosh, but people don't think about anything like this, do they?
They don't.
For women that are in those kind of roles, and that kind of stuff happens. Wow.
And then, so I had James, and then after a year went back, but unfortunately the funding had been pulled from the nursery unit.
I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have a lot of strength left. I know you have a little life in you yet.
So I went back part-time and
What, did they just redeploy you elsewhere then? Or?
They did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my focus was more on children who stammer. I had a special interest in children who stammered. So I helped design a care pathway in Northamptonshire and took on lots of groups, working with children and young people who stammer. So I loved doing that. That was great. And still had a caseload of school-based caseload, children.
So this was part-time though?
This was part-time,
What do you class as part-time?
So I was working 3 days a week.
Okay. That's good, because sometimes the amount of women that will say, I was doing 4 days a week. I'm like, it's not massively part-time, is it, 4 days? And let's face it, you're probably trying to cram 5 days. Well, you were probably trying to cram 5 days into 3.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think when I say part-time...
And you were doing it at home, I bet you were doing
exactly.
Yeah.
I think all the admin comes home with you, so, right.
So your 3 days in was just practical and all your admin was done. So you're still basically working 5 days, weren't you, really?
Pretty much.
And with 2 little kiddies?
Well, at that point, just one.
Just one,
so
yeah.
Just one.
Yeah.
And then my daughter was born in 2019. Luckily, not so traumatic. And I always had the idea that I was going to come out of the NHS. I think at that point I was travelling over an hour to get to work in the morning, an hour in the evening, doing all my notes in the evening. And I thought, do you know what? I don't know if this is going to be manageable, being a mum and having to do
this
drop-offs and
also knowing that the funding just fundamentally isn't there.
Yeah. I think, we train to be therapists and we train to treat children. And at that point I was doing lots of assessments and advice, but perhaps not the therapy that I wanted to do.
Right.
So before Eva was born, going back to 2013, my friend and I set up a company, and it was a training company, and we wanted.
So were you pregnant at the time?
So,
or had you just?
I think I just had James.
Yeah.
And Beth, my friend and my colleague, had just had her daughter. So I
Yeah.
think we were on maternity leave, and we thought, you know what? Let's set up a company, and in our spare time we'll do some training. So when I had Eva, we had a discussion, and Beth said, do you know what? I think my time in the NHS is finished as well. So we left the NHS to do more work for our company, more training, and take on a caseload of children to see independently. And then COVID hit.
Oh my gosh, well this is the thing. So you are now what, at the start of 2020?
Start of 2020. So I gave my notice in January 2020.
So you had no business really to kind of even get support. Do you know what I mean, in that respect?
Yeah. I had to work out my notice. So I worked out my notice in the NHS through the start of COVID, which was challenging. At that point, I had Eva, who was 1, and James, who was 5. So I was trying to homeschool James, look after a toddler, and
wrap up your job,
yeah,
and set up a new thing.
Yeah. So I put the company on hold for a little bit while I think while we were in the depths of COVID, and I was homeschooling, and I had the kids.
We didn't know what was going on, did we? We didn't know how long it was going to go on for.
It was a bit
the innocence of us.
Exactly. It was a scary place, wasn't it? And I think, working in the NHS as well.
Oh my God! Well, yeah.
And so that was a challenging time, but actually, when lockdown lifted and I was out of the NHS, we put ourselves out there. And
so do you still just do children, or do you do, because now that you're private, can you take anybody on, or is it still very much?
So I just see children.
Specialise in children,
yeah. For 18
and your
years.
colleague, does she do?
She is children as well. So we're both children. We have specialist areas in what we do. Mine is around supporting children with speech sound disorders, language disorders. I see lots of preschool children, and I also see children who stammer. So those are my specialist areas.
Yeah.
And Beth is slightly different. She sees more of the school age caseload. She has a special interest in selective mutism. So we have our
brilliant.
Our niches and our areas that we work.
Yeah. I mean, I did want to ask, I know it was part of your course more than now, but like adults then, so is that adults that have maybe, I guess, like had strokes and things? Or I was trying to think what adult needs might be.
Yeah, so adults who have had strokes, brain injuries.
Of course.
Adults with progressive illnesses, like Parkinson's.
Yes.
There are adults who have eating and drinking needs. Right. Adults with voice disorders. So you might be working with a teacher or a singer who might, because of their job, have a voice disorder. So I work with lots of children who have language disorders, which are really common.
Yes.
Developmental language disorder, I'll say that term to somebody and they'll look at me vaguely and think, what's that? But actually, 7 or over 7% of children have a developmental language disorder. So that's 2 children in every classroom have a developmental language disorder.
And what are we talking there, though? Are we, so that people can be really clear about either maybe what's going on with their own children, or what we're talking about with your role? Are we talking stutters and stammers and?
So developmental language disorder is a condition that might be lifelong, and it will affect a child's ability to understand what people are saying.
Oh.
It will affect their ability to form phrases, sentences. So it can impact upon every part of their day and every single interaction. And it's so common, it's more prevalent than autism, but...
Well, autism gets a lot of airtime now,
It gets a lot of airtime. Not much is said about developmental language disorder, more research is being done. We're trying to get the word out that actually, you know, this is a diagnosis that children can get.
I mean, right, we've got to discuss this then. So what can you describe what symptoms are then? What does this sound like or look like? If you're, I mean, how does a child even get presented to you with it? What's going on with them?
Yeah, so often children will come to us because they've, you know, that their parents are concerned about their child's understanding. You know, they can't follow instructions. They can't.
So the speech as itself is kind of okay, or?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes children will have some difficulties following instructions, being able to understand what is happening. So they might go to a nursery or a school, and actually the teacher might give out sets of instructions, and the child might look a little bit blank and might look as though they're following their friends, but actually not really understanding what's happening. At home, your parents might be giving instructions like, oh, you know, let's go, we're going to grandma's house now, we need to go and find our coat, let's go and, or go and get your favourite toy from upstairs and let's get in the car. And actually, a child might not be able to understand that. So again, they might look a little bit blank, they might look as though actually they're not listening, you know, so somebody might get cross with them and say, look, you're not listening, come on, let's go. But actually a child might not be able to understand what's being said. Usually get them to a point where they can communicate functionally, and I work with schools all the time, work with teachers, work with Senkos to get children to
have the support they need beyond you. Yeah,
absolutely.
I guess what's the most challenging part of what you do? The trickiest thing?
Oh gosh.
And I feel like there's going to be loads.
There is a lot. I think, you know, just making sure that you know that you're doing the best for that child. And sometimes I might not be the most appropriate therapist for that child, and I need to find somebody who is. Often, you know, we get phone calls from parents all the time asking for us to see their children. And I will always have that initial chat on the phone with the parent before I take a child on, because I need to know that I am the right therapist for that child, and if I'm not, I help that parent to find the right therapist.
And do you think most therapists will do that, independent therapists? Or I'm guessing, because obviously if you're self-employed, the tendency might be to want the work, for want of a better phrase, and to pass that work on to someone else in the best interest of the child. It's quite a big thing, isn't it?
It is, but you need to do it. I can't take on children that I don't
You don't feel like you're the best person for them.
Absolutely. So I always have a 15-minute conversation with parents before I take anybody on to make sure that I am the right therapist. And if I'm not, I will pass on. And then likewise, other therapists pass children to me if they feel that I'm best suited to that child. So we're all really busy. We don't really, we do need the work, but we don't,
I don't even know why I said that based on what you said. There's not enough of you, so yeah, you are all very busy.
We're very busy, but it's far more important that that child gets the right therapist, gets the right support, and I would much rather pass that child on if I'm not the right therapist.
Okay, then let's flip that then. Surely there's going to be loads as well, but what's the best part?
Oh, the best part.
Or the best parts?
Oh. The best parts are working with the children. Oh, I absolutely love it. They are fabulous. They are fabulous. I love it. They make me laugh all the time. I love going to their houses, to their schools. Parents constantly say to me that the feedback I get is that they love you, Jenny. They love you. They love your sessions. And I'm not bigging myself up, but I just think, do you know what? I've obviously built a connection with those children, and I work really hard. I think that's one of my.
But if you're loving it as well, that will come across, won't it?
Yeah, I love it, and they love it. They love the therapy. I have to make therapy fun. Therapy can be boring if we're working on some sounds and we're doing things repetitively, which is what you have to do sometimes. You have to make it fun. So I'm constantly thinking about different ways to make things fun and build in different games and keep them motivated. So that I love seeing the children. I love working with the families. I had a session the other week. I'd worked with the family.
If you make me cry, I'm going to get cross with you. I'm not going to look at you. No.
I'd worked with the family for a couple of years, and they invited me to their house for the last session. So I'd seen this boy in school a lot, and I went to see him at home, and I walked in and they'd set the room up. They'd done posters and banners, and the children had done, they got flowers and cakes out for me, and it was amazing. They said to me, "You've changed our life."
Don't. I'm not going to look at you. I'm not looking at you.
I thought, how lovely is that?
Yeah.
They said, "You've been such a big part of our life for the last 2 years, and you've made such a difference to us. We wanted to say thank you."
Oh my God.
I love that. Yeah. And I get that. I do get that a lot. I get lots of thank you cards saying, "Do you know what? You have changed. You've given our child a way of communicating, and we can now communicate with our child. We can now understand our child, and you've changed their life, and you've changed our life." So
the rewards are just obvious then, aren't they?
Huge.
It's just so at least you get that. You get that kind of, it's tough and it's challenging.
Yeah.
And to have that as outcomes is just,
And the other thing I love is working and passing on my knowledge and skills to other people. So we do a lot of training. We work with another speech and language therapy company, it's kind of a nationwide company, to help to deliver accredited courses. So practitioners will get an accreditation at the end of the course.
Yeah.
So we do lots of training, and I love that. I love that side of things. We used to do a lot more face-to-face training. Now it's, a lot of it's on Zoom.
Yeah.
Since
But it opens up the world, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So I've just finished a course where I had some great practitioners from all over the country on my course. And I love that side of things as well, passing on my knowledge and skills so that those practitioners can support the children in their settings.
Oh, wow.
I love that too.
Yeah.
That's a great part
you
of my
are
job.
sitting here, the vibe coming off you is, I really love what I do.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Which is just, in many ways, it's a gift, isn't it? Because a lot of people don't do what they like doing, do they?
No, they don't.
So to just, Okay, I'm very conscious of time. For you more than me, obviously I've got all the time in the world. You've got busy things to do. What's next then? For you both as a duo, or for you particularly?
Well, I think we're very busy at the moment. We're very busy with our families and our caseloads and our business. So I don't think we've got any immediate plans. Whether we extend the company in the future and take on another therapist, I don't know.
It was going to be one of my questions. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It will come to my 3 final questions, which I think will be really interesting coming from you. So my first of third is, what advice would you give your younger self? That younger Jenny at school. It could be any version of your younger self, but maybe quiet Jenny.
Okay, it would be not to worry so much. I was a big worrier.
Everything.
About doing well and achieving, and I was at school. I was always worried about, if I don't
getting good grades.
If I don't get this grade. Actually, do you know what? Things happen in life. Things happen for a reason. So I would try to tell myself not to worry. I think if I had my chance again to do, I would definitely be a speech language therapist, but I might train in a slightly different way. So like I said earlier about the apprenticeships, I might have taken that route if that was available now.
Interesting,
and I think to listen to, I think, if you get a gut feeling about something, if you think in life something's not quite right, I think listen to that gut feeling. And I think
it's a really, really common thing that women, are saying. Just trust yourself, trust your inner voice, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Listen to it. And I know that we teach, particularly girls, that enough, young girls, that enough.
Yeah.
It's so tricky to be drawn out by other pressures and listen to other external voices, isn't it? Yeah. Particularly as a teenager, as I'm finding with my daughter.
Yes.
Okay, so the second of third question is, what life advice would your older self give you? I've actually flipped those around now because it works better. So life advice you would give to your younger self. 2 is now life advice that, and the age we pick, I keep picking a 65-year-old. Oh. So 65-year-old, what advice do you think she would give you now?
I think she would say, be there for your family. Make sure, family is my priority. At the end of the day, that is why I left the NHS, because I needed to be there for my children more. That's what I felt was my priority at that stage. So I think my older self would say, yeah, you did the right thing. You had the opportunity to do something different. And actually that's important. For me at the moment, my children are my absolute priority. But also my caseload, my work is important too. I think my older self might say, you've taken some risks and that's paid off. I think sometimes I can be, as I've said, a bit of a worrier, and I think
but obviously not worrying to the extent that you don't take risks.
No. I think sometimes I have imposter syndrome a little bit, and I think, am I actually good enough? Am I, and I think that older self might look back and say, yeah, you were good enough,
Oh my God, I love your older self. So your older self's really proud of you.
Yeah, I think my older self would be proud.
More proud of you than you quite... So it's almost you kind of going that you want to be proud of yourself, but yeah, you're not quite there yet. Yeah. Final question then is just life advice to throw out into the world. So mantras that you live and die by, or as I say, if Jenny had a T-shirt, what would it say?
Yeah, it would be... trust your instincts, and I've said that, it really would be. I think I've been caught out a couple of times in business, and I've thought, people have rung me up, and I've thought, I don't know about this, and I haven't trusted my instinct, and then it's come back to bite me a little bit. So I think trust your instinct. I think just believe in yourself, because actually nobody will believe in you if you don't believe in yourself.
So true.
I think those are my two biggest mantras.
Brilliant
life advice.
And on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been lovely to chat.
If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some pics and read about how to get started in this industry and or this role, then please go to our website www.thiswomanswork.org. The link is on this podcast page and across our socials. Sincere thanks.